Hello and welcome to the program. Coming up, going the Nigerian way, the Electoral Commission says it will recruit persons with higher educational background as it serves notice it won't spare electoral officers who break the law during the 2016 polls. We'll bring you some details as the EC chair rolls out the reforms for election 2016. Also, can a president do enough in 4 years? We'll take you to Bandai, in the northern region, where the president is continuing his campaign with a call on residents to extend his mandate, saying it won't be fair to truncate the foundation he's built. Also, will the president's decision to reduce the sentences of the Muntie trio affect his fortunes at the polls? We'll bring you some analysis on this as well as reactions from the political parties. Join me for the next 20 minutes for all this and more.
Comprehensive coverage of election 2016 here on Election Headquarters on TV, radio, online and mobile.
Once again, welcome to the program. I'm Arba Kumzin. Now, it remains an open secret that the Electoral Commission has come under criticism by some political parties, mainly the opposition, on the modalities and procedures the Commission is using as the nation heads to the December 7 polls. Well, in a bid to make the process more transparent and get the much-needed trust from the stakeholders, the EC has been revealing some of the reforms it intends to roll out for this year's elections. One of them is selected personnel with higher education as a way of safeguarding the integrity of the electoral process. In a way, it's similar to the Nigerian elections which brought General Muhammadu Buhari to power. The Nigerian Independent Electoral Commission, INEC, recruited academia, particularly university professors, to man the polls, while the EC chairperson, Charlotte Esai, has been interacting with editors in Accra. And we can get more details on this. I'm joined in the studio by the Deputy Head of Communications at the Commission, Yusuf Ayuba. Many thanks for your time.
Thank you.
Now, we know from the Nigerian example that university professors were selected, to man the polling station. Why is the EC deciding on recruiting people with higher education?
Thank you very much. This stems from the 2012 elections where we went to the Supreme Court. We realized that there were a lot of mistakes on the pink sheets. So after the Supreme Court verdict, we set up a reform committee to look into most of our processes and procedures we use. And this is one of the recommendations that they made, that we should, as much as possible, recruit persons with higher qualifications so as to avoid what happened in 2012. So this is the main reason why the Electoral Commission this time is going to recruit high caliber personnel so as to avoid exactly what happened in 2012.
So when you say high caliber personnel, who are we looking at? University professors or university students or who? Teachers? Who are we looking at?
We have various levels of personnel that we recruit. We have presiding officers. We're going to have this time collation officers to all the 275 constituency collation centers. So these persons are likely to be people coming from their who have accountancy background. So these are some of the things that we would want to, or these are some of the kind of people we want to use for the elections.
Okay.
Exactly at the constituency collation centers.
Okay,
yes.
I see. So these people will be collating the results?
Yes.
Okay,
yes.
All right. Now, one of the reforms that the Commission intends to roll out is the implementation of the sanction regime, where electoral officers who violate the electoral laws will be sanctioned. Tell us about that.
You realize that over the years, people, the temporal staff that we normally recruit for our exercises, they come into the exercise, they do all sorts of things because you cannot determine someone's background just by looking at the person, you know. So
when you say they do all sorts of things, I mean, what do they do?
You know, they come with several motives, you know, but then at the end of the day, you are not able to read whether they did some of the things they do were intentional or premeditated, or they were just simple mistakes. So this time in the law, we've put in the law sanction regimes that if any official comes to violate any of the procedures that we give them, especially during elections and also during our activities, those persons would be severely sanctioned.
Okay, so I'm reading through the list of reforms that the Commission intends to roll out, and one of them is that the election officials and party agents will be expected to take oaths before a magistrate or judicial officer instead of an officer of the Commission. Why is that the case?
Previously, all those temporal staff that we recruit swear before a senior officer of the Commission. We've realized that they don't take that serious. So now they are supposed to swear before a judicial officer so that they would know exactly that if they violate any of the rules that govern the elections or any other procedures at the election center, at the polling station, they will be sanctioned. So we want them to take the exercise that they are going to do very seriously. That is why now they would swear before a judicial officer so that in they violating any of the rules, they will be sanctioned.
Now, one thing that comes up as we head to the elections, usually electoral officers recruited for the exercise often threaten to boycott the exercise because of the low salaries that they are paid. What are you doing to forestall some of these?
It's one of the reforms that we've taken into consideration after the reform committee made the proposal. If you've followed our system for a while, after 2012, the level of allowances that we give to the officials, the category of officials has increased considerably. And we are not saying it's enough. We're trying as much as possible. If the budget we can make provisions in the budget, and if we have enough money so that we can raise the level of allowances that they receive. But it's one of the reforms that we have already taken on board that we are rolling.
All right, thank you very much. And so that is Deputy Head of Communications at the Electoral Commission, Yusuf Ayuba there. Well, we can listen to Madam Charlotte say she's been addressing news editors in Accra today.
Again, it's something that we're looking at. We've had some engagement with the Ghana Bar Association and with the Chartered Accountants. And no, it's not exactly the JEGA model, because JEGA is running a federal system, and so you have state electoral commissioners, and so their structure is quite different from ours. And you also have to take your political culture into account when you are doing, if you are trying to copy an example from someone. I don't think that in Nigeria they have, what are groups called? TAIN, and then there's another one, TESCON, and all those. So you can't just, we can't take everything they're doing. But what we're trying to see is when we finish with all the main things we have to do with elections and the Commission approves, is to have at the constituency collation centers members of the Ghana Bar and the Institute of Chartered Accountants. When you're tallying in the collation process to remove errors, we think it may be beneficial to have another layer of checks. So you'd have the lawyers checking that the forms are properly filled, properly signed off, and then you'd have the accountants also making sure that As a lawyer, I don't think we're very good at counting. We'll have the accountants also check and make sure that the numbers have been added up properly. It's just another layer of checks, which brings another layer of integrity into the process, so that by the time we do the final tallying, we're all comfortable that the processes prior to that have been properly conducted and that the elections, the results actually reflect the will of the people of Ghana.
So that's EC Chairperson Charlotte Osei there. Now we know that the inclusion of professionals on the elections follows the Nigerian example, where academia played a key role in ensuring the process was free and fair in that country. So how was that process carried out? We're joined on the line now by Buki Towuru. She's with Capital Radio in Nigeria. Hello, Buki.
Hello, good afternoon. How are you?
I'm very well, and thank you for joining us. Now,
you're welcome.
Now, a lot has been said about how free and fair the process was because of the recruitment of professors in your country. But tell us, how were members of the academia selected?
For me, Professor Jega happens to be a very credible person that, of course, a lot of people were able to run through his background, that they know him very well for his commitment, his integrity, his dedication to duty. Those were major things that stood out for him. So when he recommended that to the president, then he was allowed to put in those measures and make it work. I could hear one of your respondents then, you talked about salary, swearing in to the oath, putting it in the legislation. A lot of laws are in place, but if you'll agree with me, the best that we can get from any law or any proposal or any amendment has to do with people who drive the process. And if you don't get the people who can sacrifice, who can put in their energy, integrity, dedication, commitment, you might not likely get anything at the end of the day. So for me, this was what was able to help out, even by with the academia that Professor Jega got into the electoral process at that time. He knew those people, so to speak, he could vouch for them. So whatever it is that they were doing for him was the right thing to be done.
All right.
And it
Buki,
wasn't an easy task.
Right. Buki, I imagine they were given different tasks to do. What were their specific tasks? Was it just to collate results or man the process proper?
They were not the one managing the process. They were at the collation centers. They saw to every ward, every location that every election was conducted, that all the results that were brought in from all these centers were collated at the centers, and that they supervised. Know also that at each election center voting point, you have party members who were supervising. So there wasn't so much problem at those points, except for some flashpoints that there were some problems and they were reported. Some were contained, some they couldn't contain, some they had to cancel the results of those places when the report comes in. And of course, from the observers, we have different observers from different countries who came in to monitor the election. So it was at the collation centers that you have the professors manning the leadership there and making sure that the results were not altered, were not manipulated in any way.
Thank you very much. And that's Buki Towuru. She's with Capital Radio in Nigeria, bringing us the Nigerian perspective there. You're watching Election Brief. Now, it's been a call that former President John Kufuor has been making consistently. I'm talking about the need to amend the Constitution to increase the tenure of presidents in the country. Currently, the Constitution prescribes 4 years for anyone who is elected president. that issue has been resurrected by current President John Dramani Mahama as he takes his campaign to the northern region. Today, he's been campaigning in Pandai, where he called on residents to extend his mandate, saying it would be unfair to truncate the foundation he's built. Let's get some details from our man on the ground, Hashmin Mohammed, who is following the president's convoy. Good afternoon to you, Hashmin.
Good afternoon, Araba.
Now, I imagine the president has been touting his administration's achievements, which may be why he's asking for an extension of his tenure. What has he been telling the people?
Well, he said, after the time former president, late President Mills took office, electricity coverage in the northern region was 30%. But as it stands now, electricity coverage in northern region is 70%. And he's saying that currently there's a bill in Parliament in which the government is seeking a loan facility to improve access to electricity in 24 communities in each district in the country. And he's saying that he's laying all these foundations to ensure that he's able to transform Ghana in his next tenure of office. He made reference to the fact that President Kufuor was wise when he said the tenure of the presidency needs to be increased from 4 years to about 5 years. And then talking about the challenges of the people in that particular constituency, 3 issues came out. They want the government to fix their rules. They are also complaining that their sources of drinking water is very, very bad, and they want government to improve access to water in that particular constituency. And then finally, the president assured them that he's going to upgrade the Pandai Polyclinic into a district clinic and ensure that the National Health Insurance Authority put up its office there so that residents in that particular constituency will not have to travel to Hokoi or Talaga in the East Gonja district to register.
All right, Hashmin.
When they want.
You have been speaking to residents of Pandai. What are their peculiar demands or problems that they would expect any candidate to address for them?
Well, they want the president to fix their bad road network, and then they also want the president to improve on their access to water. They are saying that it is very, very bad in that particular area. We can listen to some of their residents.
First of all, our roads are not all good. From Pandai to Ketejeli, from Ketejeli to Kabongole, Belaja, Ketare, Ketejeli to Buya, up to Dambai Junction, that is Bright Junction. That areas, the roads are bad conditions. During this time, you can't, we are farmers. When you dig, you have to send it to Accra to sell. So during this rainy season, the cars cannot send our yams to Accra to sell it. And secondly, the whole district will have one senior high school, which is Pansek. So we want president to give us 2 or 1 senior high school so that our children will be able to go to school. And thirdly, that is water. We don't have enough water in communities, especially like Kabongole. Kabongole, for instance, we are during dry season. We have to go to the bush to dig a hole before we get water from there. I'm a member of Kabongole community, so we appeal to President to support us, to let us get water.
So those are residents of Pandai in the northern region where the president has taken his campaign to. Now, some say they saw it coming. For others, it was a huge surprise. But one thing that everyone can agree on is that not everyone will agree with the decision. I'm talking about the president's decision to free Godwin Akogan, Alistair Nelson, and Salifu Mase, who caused public outrage when they threatened to rape and murder justices of the Supreme Court during a political talk show. They were sentenced to 4 months in jail. Yesterday, President Mahama indicated that he had instructed that their sentences be remitted. So per the president's decision, they will be freed on Friday. That decision has been greeted with both condemnation and applause. Lawyer for the directors of Muntie FM, who were also convicted by the Supreme Court, Nana Tudaze, believes the president acted within the law. But the communications minister, Dr. Edward Omane-Boamah, has also been speaking. He says the president's decision does not in any way undermine the role of the judiciary, but rather affirms his respect for the Constitution.
Let me state that President John Dramani Mahama continues to respect state institutions, and that is why he acted in accordance with the Constitution. He will continue to respect the powers conferred on state institutions, and these include the legislature, the judiciary, the executive, and let me add the media as a fourth estate, and the citizens of Ghana, which these institutions must serve. At all times, he will ensure that he acts in a manner that does not offend the laws of our nation.
Meanwhile, reactions from political parties have been mixed. The Progressive People's Party and the opposition New Patriotic Party have condemned the move. Here's the NPP's Nana Komia.
This had always been the intention of President Mahama. When you have a situation where cabinet ministers who sit with him in cabinet on a weekly basis and have the constitutional responsibility of advising him, when you see a situation where they go outside the cabinet and are signing petitions to advise President Mahama, then you know that it's all an orchestration. And what President Mahama has done, he has written himself into the history books in a bad way, set a bad precedent. These people have been removed from prison basically because they are NDC. President Mahama has chosen to exercise his power of mercy on the basis of partisan considerations, and it's unfortunate.
But the All People's Congress and the People's National Congress has described the move by the president as a sign of compassion, alleviating the harsh sentence meted out by the Supreme Court. National Chairman of the PNC, Bernard Mona, spoke to Joy News.
Well, we think that it is a compassionate stance that the president has taken. It is our view that a custodial sentence as given by the justices of the Supreme Court was rather too harsh. We disapprove of the conduct of the three persons who were involved in scandalizing the judiciary. But we also think that the sentencing was on the higher side, and therefore a remission of the sins after the Council of State had advised the presidency will not be out of place. And so we hope and pray that the culprits will come out and show remorse, possibly to thank the president for his show of compassion, and also to tell the judiciary and the people of Ghana that in their pronouncement they went out of their way, and that their right to free speech, they overstepped their bounds. To that extent, I'm sure that our nation will heal ourselves, and all of us will know that vulgar language is not permissible in our discourse. So yes, this is not a full pardon. They still carry with them the tag of ex-convicts. But I think that it will go a long way to bring some smiles to their families, and also to ensure that they are guided in their commentary.
PNC Chairman Bernard Mona there, and I'm certain that the decision will elicit even more reactions in the coming days. That's how we wrap up the show. I'm Arba Kumsin. Join us same time tomorrow. The Pulse with Francis Aban comes up next.